Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Rage On podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kaldeen Freeman, licensed physiotherapist and men's empowerment coach. Today, I have a guest who resonates with a bit of the lifestyle that I live. He's coming to you guys right now from Cambodia. His name is Ken Conklin, and he runs a men's self-improvement program called Gravel to Castle that's designed to help men become healthy, masculine, and free. And he does this all while traveling the globe with his girlfriend and is typically found on a beach, shirtless, somewhere in the world. Ken, it's a pleasure to have you on, brother.
Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome, man. I loved checking out your work over the past couple years that we've been connected. And I was checking out a bit of what you do specifically with men. And one of the things that you say you do is you focus on real world quests, battles, and trainings that unlock power and freedom in your life. Now, when I read that, I was like, man, this dude was definitely into video games or Zelda or something and wanted to bring it into the real world into a
Yeah,
purposeful manner. Could you tell me a bit more about how you got to this point, where you're originally from, and what led you to bringing this into fruition into the world for men?
for sure. So the first thought that comes up right now of like how I kind of got into the phrasing that you described of the real world quest and all that stuff. Um, I want to like share the backstory, but also the thought that came to mind that like tied in and like where that originated from. So I'll just share. I've been doing the men's work stuff for a handful of years. I'm about to turn 27 in 2 days. Since I was 18 years old, I've been in self improvement, and so I started a marketing business when I moved out to California after graduating high school. Started taking photos at the beach with my friends to kind of build up a portfolio. And I ended up pitching the apartment complex I lived at to manage their social media. That eventually transformed into me eventually becoming the marketing director for the property management company that owned all these different properties. And a couple years later, when I was really diving into the world of just understanding like what is masculinity to me, and really recognizing like, hey, all right, I'm no longer this kid anymore. I really want to be what I view as a honorable man, a strong man, and all these things that I think all of us want to be. There's our version of it that's all different, but I think there's also a lot of similar traits and characteristics that we all can agree on. But I'm sure there's things we could disagree on, which is amazing. And so for me, I've recognized I think discipline is incredibly important. Um, I've never been into drinking a lot or anything. I'll occasionally have like a margarita with my girlfriend, mainly because she gets upset if I don't ever have anything. So, but typically like, it's easy for me to go a year without having more than one drink. But so yeah, so I've always had like a marketing background and practiced discipline in different variations of my life. One of them, which kind of originated into me really diving into this men's world very deeply, was a heartbreak. I felt that I was a bit of a wimp and I got cheated on, and I was just at this place where I was like, okay, cool. I'm really trying to lead with this image and this persona of I'm this young entrepreneur living in Hollywood and all this stuff. And I realized, you know what? Like, I want a girl to be attracted to me, not because I'm doing this cool stuff or it looks like I'm going somewhere, but rather like she thinks I'm a masculine man that she's actually turned on by. And I realized I wasn't that. And so when I kind of made that shift a couple years ago to really like wanting to build myself up, I, like many guys, would watch videos on YouTube of people that I looked up to. Like of course, like David Goggins and Jocko Willing, people that most people know that maybe get into some interest of self improvement. And I also had other, even fictional characters from different TV shows and things. And I've always been one to kind of study and observe, like, how does Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead walk, or Jax Teller from Sons of Anarchy, or Bruce Wayne from Batman? Like, there's all these things I've always like loved watching just because they're fun, cool, like dude
Mhm.
shows. But I've also like noticed characteristics or speaking styles or ways they walk and things that like since again I was 18, I kind of just modeled after and kind of just practice to kind of finally get to a place where I'm at now, where I'm just like me. I don't like think how should I act or operate in the situation. I just do and be me.
Mhm.
And then the thing I wanted to bring up regarding like how did I come up with the real world quests and stuff? Because I've never been a big video game player, but in high school, I loved playing the Elder Scrolls Skyrim as well as Minecraft. And a couple months ago, I had, yeah, still don't fully understand what it was, but I nearly went permanently blind due to what is supposedly a parasite that got inside me. And optic neuritis is the phrase and medical term that a lot of these doctors end up giving me. But in the beginning, I had no idea. I just knew I was going blind. I started to, I had like one meal that all of a sudden, like my stomach started hurting a lot. And I was very confused, like, what is going on? But because it wasn't like a pain I've ever experienced before. It wasn't like, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. It was just like any sort of pressure on my stomach was just incredibly painful. And then the next day in the morning, when I'd already planned, like, okay, I'm going to go to the doctor to see someone, my left eye vision started getting blurry. And I was like, okay, this is getting kind of serious. And every day moving forward from there, just I had some like scary shit happening. All of a sudden, like there was like basically where if you hold your hand in front of your face, imagine like maybe like 2 feet away, that whole thing was black, like straight up black. I couldn't see, and all the surrounding area started getting blurry and distorted. And it's funny because like it's been a few months now, or I guess maybe even like 2 or 3. This life happens fast, it's crazy because that was like such a big kind of shift in my life where there was a week time period where I was like, okay, I'm likely going to go permanently blind, where I'm not going to be able to see shit at all. And that's a very frightening feeling. And so, once I had thankfully found some really good doctors after having to travel a little bit that were able to help me start to get some vision back. And I still had a lot of distortion. My eyes, they kind of go in and out between like 90 to 95% solid vision. It's not going to be 100, I don't think. I'm still praying and hoping, but I'm also like, okay, cool. I'm blessed and thankful that I can still do like my daily activities, spar, and do fun things. Mm-hmm. And yeah, but so I guess finally to get to the original question, I played Skyrim in high school, and when I was at this place after finally getting some vision back, but being told, hey, don't work out past 60%, because I could cause too much pressure in the back of my eye, and then the optic nerve could end up having more swelling, and I could damage like more of my eyesight than what it currently had. So I had this kind of time period where I really couldn't do what I love doing, which is really pushing myself physically. So I was like, okay, well, I want to go work on some new curriculum and switch up kind of some things in my business. And at the core, it's self-improvement and these different various areas. But I realized like, okay, I want to do some fun shit. Like, and I just change up the feeling of it. And my brand's name is Gravel to Castle. And I kind of just realized after like also listening to this Skyrim soundtrack, just to kind of like have that old nostalgic feeling be met, as well as even play the game a little bit to go like, fuck, I want guys to feel like they're on this modern day quest, or even like they're in their own video game or movie, but still tie it to real world things that are, like that so that way they're not LARPing, or they're not running around going, I'm a warrior, and they're running around with the sword, but rather, okay, you are this guy that is the main character and you are the chosen one. I like using that verbiage, and because it's fun, but it's like, okay, cool, you're the chosen one for becoming jacked and being able to travel the world and have a beautiful princess that you save, things like that.
I love that, man. I love that. And appreciate you sharing vulnerably about what you just went through. I know I saw a bit about it, and I can only imagine how scary of a time that was, being away in another country by yourself, worrying about losing your vision. Can you even manage your business, let alone your own personal life after something like that?
I thought I was fucked, bro. I thought I was not. I was like, and think about this, right? We're both entrepreneurs. We're both have taken the jumps. We've had our own sacrifices to get to this place where we're like, cool, we could create our own schedules. There's still bigger mountains for both of us to climb. But we're at this place where we're like, sweet, I'm no longer doing that shitty job that I once had, right? We all have that. But I got to a place where I was like, shit, I don't know. Like, okay, I guess I could do sales because I still have like, I've lived my life up to this point to know and see things. So maybe I can like find a way to be able to use my voice still. But I thought that if I wouldn't be able to see again, obviously my line of work, I can't do this anymore. And maybe I'll be like a motivational speaker that's like fucking, using a walking stick or whatever, the blind stick, uh, and tell them. But then again, it's like, okay, you go through that type of shit. Like, what am I gonna say? Be thankful for your eyesight. It's a whole different shift. And yeah,
Yeah.
to kind of have that, it wakes anyone up. It really humbles you.
Mhm.
But thankfully, I've already gotten to a place from other life experiences to already be grateful and stuff. So I think it was more so just also like a time crunch mentality of like, shit, okay, like I've already done a lot of things up to this point with that same mentality of I'm going to die possibly tomorrow, go start living now. But then it really made it more real of like, shit, like what's the story and legacy I really want to leave behind? Even just like a, bigger kind of urgency.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And I feel a lot of men go through a period in their life where there is something along the lines of a health scare, a terrible
Mm.
breakup, marriage, divorce. Something really bad happens, and it often wakes us up to certain things, changes how we live our lifestyle. And I know you've been through a couple of those periods now, especially after this recent
Mm.
one. Could you share
Yeah.
a bit more about what led you to really changing and getting into this personal development work? And was there like a dark period that really forced you to change yourself and really dive head in?
For sure. So I was watching a movie last night with my girlfriend. It's called Spud, and we only finished the first half, but it's basically about this kid that's at this private school and he doesn't fit in. And it seems like they're like freshmen or something. But he's like the skinny, scrawny kid that's very shy amongst these guys who are kind of stepping into their like adult bodies. They're talking about, hey, first one to, touch a girl's boobs and wins and all this stuff. And I could totally relate to this kid that was very just yeah, like not comfortable in his skin. And I think it's funny because a lot of guys can be like, if you ever see a video on YouTube of a guy like this used to be me and this is me now, and it's them, 24 plus, looking good. And then the photo they're showing is them in like eighth grade or, a freshman in high school. So it's like, yeah, of course you're going to change. Like, I think everyone gets to that. When they look back at them in high school, they're like, oh, I used to be scrawny or I used to not be
Mhm.
confident, but there's still like the people that were maybe much more confident or like still happy as a high school kid. And for me, I always was that kind of shy, just didn't fit in, and also just like didn't have many friends. And of
Yeah.
course, if someone were to ask me, "Hey Ken, I'm in high school and I don't have many friends. What do I need to do?" I have like actionable advice I can give him and tell him to get out of his comfort zone. But back then, I was just like, I don't have friends. What's wrong with me? That kind of mentality. And so, as I started getting into like working out and, just, yeah, like self improvement stuff at like 17, 18, I felt like I finally kind of woke up to like, oh, wow, I feel great. And here's like an outlet to improve my life. But
Mhm.
and so like the summer of like 2015, I had a girlfriend I was dating and I was living at my dad's house and I decided, I don't want to go to the four-year university, which was going to be the University of Arizona. That's what my kind of plan was. And at the high school I went to, I was basically like the poor kid at the rich kid's school. Were there kids more poor than me? I'm sure. But it was also like I went to the school with the Doug Ducey, the previous governor of Arizona, like his son
Mhm.
Jack was in half my classes. So I'm kind of bumping shoulders with a lot of these people, and owners of big companies, their children go to this school. It's called Brophy College Preparatory in Arizona. And it was a great school, and they taught me one thing, which or many things, but one thing that really stuck with me was be a man for others. And so I see how that had a massive impact on just my mentality and just like overall like who I am without even me kind of realizing it until I was older. But one thing that was very challenging was like being this guy that had this shitty 1990 something Ford Taurus when everyone else had all these expensive cars and like uh, I'm still like out of the Western world. I even forgot, but like Mercedes Benzes and all this stuff. And I just got to feel that feeling of like, oh, I'm insignificant compared to these people. Because a lot of them also like would purposely like, oh, what do you, like, like those people that try to be like, oh, you don't have this. Well, you're not as good as me. And so I got to be introduced to that, and it kind of lit a fire in me of, but it's also like insignificance or even like insecurity of me being like, I'm not enough because I don't have this. So then that led me on the path of, I want to prove those kids wrong. But I also had, my first heartbreak, which was challenging. But again, everyone goes to that. But I also had my stepmom, who, I towards the later years of, being a teenager and stuff, had a lot of just rough, interactions, and she ended up actually like convincing my dad, hey, kick Ken. It's basically me or Ken. And so my dad kicked me out of the house. And then she ended up actually cheating on him. And then eventually the guy that she cheated on him with, which was one of his close friends, ended up getting married to him. She's still married to him this day. And I had, a stepbrother who was her son, and then my dad's, adopted son. He had adopted them through the marriage. So I had like that family ripped apart, the heartbreak, and then I ended up moving in with my grandparents, and then my grandfather passed away, all within like a month and a half, 2 month time period. And so all this shit that's like sucked that anyone would have some challenges with, on top of me just feeling like, okay, now I'm working at a Subway. The plans of moving out to California to be with my girlfriend are no longer the plan. So now I don't know what the hell I'm doing with my life. All I do is go to the gym, work out, then go to my job to make sandwiches at Subway. And so I was like, I need to make some shit happen. So that's when I bought the camera, moved out to California, and kind of went that route. And I think the first chapter of my self-improvement, entrepreneurship journey was definitely about being motivated by insignificance, wanting to prove something to other people. And then once I finally got to the experience, like being 21, living in a $10 million mansion with a handful of other entrepreneurs right next to some of the most famous YouTubers, and being like, cool, I got to experience this. I didn't own the mansion, but I got to live in that life. And then finally got to a point where I was like, fuck, I still feel like shit. And even though I got to post a couple of videos that, all my friends from high school and all the people I, went to school with got to see, like I still feel shitty. And that, again, with the heartbreak that led to me, getting into the, real deep kind of self-improvement of going, all right, I want to be a man now, not just like, the perceived rich kid, that no one actually like likes because he's a prick. Like that's kind of what I wasn't fully that, but I was kind of trying to be that persona. And again, like we all have our phases and we all have our evolutions. I'm curious to hear kind of if you've ever had in those where you're like, you tried to be that person that you felt was going to get you whatever praise or respect, and then you realize like, fuck, I'm actually miserable being this.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, I resonate with a lot of what you shared. Even being one of the scrawnier kids, I hit puberty kind of late. And so I used to be short. And then somewhere out of nowhere, I became taller than everyone, but I was scrawny as a result of it. And so I dealt with a lot of those insecurities in my body. There's a reason I have a ton of tattoos nowadays. It's because that kind of helped with that security at a younger age. And
Tattoos definitely give you that badass look. That's one thing I don't have. And I've considered like one day maybe getting a tattoo, but also it's like you have to first take that first jump, and I haven't done that because I know a lot of people, once they get their first tattoo, they're like, oh, now I see where I could have another one that would add it. So I've seen yours and it looks awesome, bro. So I want to say you pull it off.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't only for security purposes. I enjoyed the work. And I think you see a commonality amongst a lot of people who do have tattoos, that they are some of the nicest people. They just want to put off this badass exterior because growing up, they never felt that way, or they felt they were put down. And I see it as a commonality. But in my life too, as a result of being the smaller kid, and not always sure of how to fit in. I also had a verbally abusive dad who like just didn't make me feel confident. I became kind of the chameleon where I would fit in anywhere I could. And I knew how to change my personality slightly. And most people did like me, whether it was with the band kids as I was a drummer, or with the sports kids. I was pretty athletic. So I was able to fit in most places, but it also was a way of me avoiding conflict, avoiding fights, things like that. because I was so scared at home from my dad that I just didn't want to deal with that anywhere else in my life. And I never
Mm.
had an outlet other than playing the drums where I could let go of my rage, my anger that I was always repressing. I wasn't put into martial arts or anything like that, which I wish I would have at a younger age. I think I would have developed a lot more confidence. So I resonate with a lot of what you shared, man, because I think a lot of men have gone through similar periods where, in your case, you were surrounded by people who were quote unquote better than you. They had more than
Mm.
you, they were richer than you, they looked better than you, and you were in that place of insecurity. And so I am curious because you're only turning 27 in 2 days, which happy early birthday.
Thanks,
Um,
man.
what really was the big thing that helped you step into the person, the man that you are now? Because when I first came across you, I was like, all right, look at this dude. I didn't even know you were only 26, first of all. I thought you were like closer to my age. I'm 31. But I was
But
just
the
like,
thing is, it's funny because like, with how much life we've lived, that's
mhm,
like a 5 year difference. But for someone that's 70 compared to 75, you'd be like, we're the same
yeah,
age. So it's like there's a couple chapters of life that I've yet to live that you have that you could,
mhm.
share on. But I mean, that's what's also great is we're like so similar in age where I'm sure we can relate on a lot of chapters we're currently in.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I'm just curious, you had this insecurity and you were, trying to fit in, trying to be accepted, trying to do certain things at that age of 21, living in California to be accepted or be loved. Maybe there's something else that you were trying to gain, and you could reflect on that. But what helped you get out of that insecure phase? And was there something specific that really was the big shift that led you into now supporting other men in doing this work for themselves to give you that confidence?
For sure. Well, so um, I think it's a handful of thoughts that come up. I think one of them that would be valuable to share is, when I started a marketing business and, I was nowhere near rich, right? But being able to, sign a lease to rent a room that's, it's like $5,000 a month to then, pay like a 10 grand deposit down. In a house that's $30,000 a month, but I'm with a handful of other entrepreneurs, and it's like, cool, this is awesome. Um, that was like, oh, look at me, I'm now living in 21 Savage's old mansion, and I felt so good. And I was
Mhm.
back in 2018. I was 21 at the time, so I was like, I'm 21, living in 21 Savage's old mansion, and like that was like, I want to say that because I know my ex girlfriend and all these guys back that are in fraternities, they're that I went to school with that, just again, nothing against people that did that route. And I used to definitely be the guy that would be like, saying shit about people going to college. And now it's like, honestly, I don't give a shit. Like, do it, do or don't. I'd say don't do it. Still, I have that stance because I'm like, fuck, I've always been the guy that wanted freedom. And how do you really have freedom? Well, be self-employed, start your own thing. And trying to not lose my train of thought. Uh, fuck, my brain sometimes does this.
No, you're all good.
But
I
yeah,
was just,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, I guess like going to that route and then eventually getting in contact with like the homeowner of that place who ended up being like he's a very successful real estate developer in Hollywood, and then end up like working with him, helping. I built him a website one time, and just kind of yeah, I've always been kind of good at networking and helping people out with the skill sets I have, and then eventually I'm kind of watching over these big ass mansions, like the ones that like the one I was in, it was like 30,000 a month. Then there's the
Wow.
one next to it where the old YouTubers lived that goes for $50,000 a month. And here I am now living in it, watching over it, and helping with like keeping tabs on the contractors who are fixing it up when some guys leave. And it's had like a cool network. I was like, fuck, this is crazy. And I'd have my friends over, we'd go swimming in the pool, have some girls over, and then like we'd have a dance party in a movie theater. And it was just like a crazy ass lifestyle. And that was when I had met my a particular girlfriend that I was dating. Where like that was my life. I wasn't at that level to where I'm like the guy that built and owned these houses, but I'm living that life. And like there really wasn't much difference with like the kind of the dates we go on and all these things. And yeah, and I just remember like getting my heart ripped out of my chest from the experience of unfortunately, like our paths separating, and then getting to this place where I was like, fuck, I feel so shitty. But it's the most valuable place for me to be at, being in my, early 20s and experiencing that when I looked up to the guys that had multiple girlfriends, or like, were living this life of them on Instagram with all these girls around them. And I saw firsthand, like very up close, like, I had never been the guy that had multiple girls. But like, I have known one guy that I was very close with that would have like a 24-year-old girlfriend living with him and a 32-year-old girlfriend living with him. Where like, I don't want to get into too much detail with that stuff, but like, yeah, it would just be kind of crazy seeing certain things and going like, wow, like this actually isn't what I want. The image of showcasing that, which is what I did want, was for the result of like people going, okay, this guy's dope and cool. But at the core of what I really wanted was just a woman that loved me at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing all these things thinking like, okay, well, if I get this and I get this, and then eventually I'll have this. And then I finally realized, like, you know what? I actually want to just like strip myself of all this stuff. So I actually end up, I moved to my dad's house and just lived in this back room of his and slept on a cot for a bit. Not because of any life change that happened, other than me being like, I'm fucking over all this stuff. And I did that, but then ended up going back to Hollywood because I had some opportunities, and that was great. Ended up having a documentary filmed on me by Vice, and that was really cool. They reached out to me when I was actually traveling in El Salvador, and that was after a mushroom trip with some friends where I realized, you know what, I need to go travel the world. Because I was in Hollywood too, because I was like, okay, I've spent so many years out here and I feel miserable, but I want like something to happen. And like I realized like nothing's really happened. So I kind of got to this place where finally I was like, all right, fuck it. I'm just gonna start this new phase. And then that's when I actually got an email from a producer saying, hey, we're looking for an alpha male boot camp. And that's not how I brand myself as. But I was like, fuck, for a Vice documentary, hell yeah, we're the biggest alpha male boot camp out there. Your guy's not going to survive us. And so I got that. And I wouldn't say I, played the producer, but more so I think he was looking for a guy that would be much more cringy or like, like less, like a less normal. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure, there's many elements that so many people could like say, oh, that guy's cringy and all this stuff. But you go in the comments of that video. It has like almost, I think like 700 something thousand views. And, there's people that love it, people that hate it. And that's just how life is going to go. But it was a great thing for me because I was like, okay, cool. All the work I've done, it's great. But also I recognize that the person I am now, who's now gone through this like process, and I'd say like modern day heroic journey where, you leave home and you build yourself up, you fight the dragon, you lose and come back, but then you're like, you know what? No, I still have another, round left in me. And then finally I like won that chapter or won that game, right? There's more games to play, but I finally did that. And that person I was on that camera was like totally different than who I would have been at 21 if Vice was like, oh, you're this young entrepreneur living in the mansion. Let me film a documentary. Thank God I didn't have that opportunity back then, because it just would have showcased me in the light that just isn't what I want my legacy to be,
Mm-hmm. What is the legacy you want to leave?
Yeah. So I think as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that I think important detail to add is I've met an incredible woman. Her name's Leah. We've been together for almost a year now. I met her in Bali. She's from South Africa, and actually went and visited her home country and got to see what it's like being a little blonde girl in a world where there's not a lot of white people compared to maybe the States where there's plenty of black people, but the
Mm-hmm.
percentage of black to white is very small. And so like for her to grow up in a culture where it's totally different, it's so fascinating to like experience, but also like, understand her backstory. But yeah, she's an incredible person, and she's been the person that's come into my life where I'm like, wow, like we're planning on having our life be together. I've had a couple of relationships where it's like, maybe the other person too, I'm sure. But for me, I'd like, there's a couple of things iffy. Like for her and I, we're certain, like, no, we found a life partner, and we're speaking that just from the beginning when we first met, and that's what like it was really made us special, and I think it's such a rare thing, and so I think I've found a lot of things I was searching for in other places, such as like wanting to work hard to build a big business or build a big social media presence and all these things that we kind of look for some validation that I finally was able to get from like, wow, I have an amazing person in my life. Like I feel whole in regards to like, I don't need a million people to see my stuff. I love making a cool video or doing this cool thing and showing my girl. And then cool, she likes it. Hell yeah, I don't need anyone else to like it. But I do value freedom and I do value security and I want to live a prosperous life. So I'm definitely, of course, ambitious with that aspect. And yeah, that's kind of the phase of my life where her and I we're living our lives, traveling. We're going to take some time for a 1 year anniversary to go to the place where we first like basically fell in love in Bali, where it's like away from all the very touristic places, and
Mm-hmm.
where her and I got to get away from that and so yeah, like live life, but also like my legacy that I want to leave behind on top of like building a family and living a just adventurous, memory filled life is I want to just like have my story impact other people. And what I mean by that is I love like documenting my journey on, say, YouTube or, making some videos. And, I don't get a whole lot of views on there, but it's nice knowing that some people do watch my stuff and have been watching it since I was 18. And it's like, if I can be entertaining, then that's awesome. But if I can also be entertaining and give some sort of, um, support along someone's journey of like just I'm sharing shit that I went through and how I overcame it, or I'm doing some stuff. They're like, "Fuck, I think I could do that too," and then they do it, and then all of a sudden now they're reaping that benefit from doing so. Um, like I love the fact that we live in an era where we have this technology to basically create our own TV shows and create our
Yeah.
own movies, and we're the ones that could also like edit it and make it much more exciting. And that's the kind of filmmaker aspect of me where I love kind of creating like action movie trailer commercials compared to like, hey, are you a business man who's looking to get in shape? Like I love having like explosion, not actual explosion, but like things that make you feel like fuck, this is different and fun. I think that's kind of what I plan my legacy to be is reach those guys that are kind of wanting to be around other guys and I realize I'm kind of rambling now. How about I'll cut at that and I'll let you talk.
No, you're good, brother. You're good. I love it. I love seeing you and your passion and seeing you share things that light you up. Because that's what we're all here for. That's what a lot of men are seeking and craving. And so to hear from a man who is sharing authentically from a place of this is what really lights me up.
Mm.
I think it inspires other men to find what that is for them and that it doesn't have to look this certain way. And you shared something really crucial of you were previously trying to get the numbers and the metrics and the things, the vanity scores, right? And they are important to an extent, right? You have 1 million people following you. That means you're speaking to a broader audience. You might be impacting more people, but it's where are you gaining the real value from? And I love what you have now in this relationship and it's beautiful. It's really beautiful because that's what a lot of men are struggling to find right now. I know myself, I had my own stint with TV. I went on a reality TV show and I just went out there to say, you know what, this is an experience. I don't know what's going to come from it, but hey, I'm going to put myself out there and give it a shot and just see what happens. YOLO, literally moment where you only live once. And through going on that, although it didn't make me this big celebrity or anything, some people saw that and they ended up working with me because they saw my character, they saw my personality, and they reached out. And it was only because I put myself out there in an authentic way that I attracted people who could benefit from my support, my coaching, my help. And that
That's
was,
amazing.
yeah, that was an extremely important lesson in my journey of just put yourself out there authentically. Don't worry about what the outcome is. Just focus on the action. Now,
Yeah.
you've had a lot of shifts in these few past years, and you've been traveling a bit, as you talked about. You met Leah in Bali, and now you're in Cambodia. I am curious. I know I've had plenty of travels. I've been nomadic for about 2 years. What has traveling done for you, and how has it shifted your perspective on how you want to live your life? Because I know we chatted briefly about or I think you shared how the American dream is not found in America, it's found outside America nowadays. You just make the American income essentially. So, how has
Yeah.
traveling really shifted your perspective on how you want to live your life?
Well, so there's some incredible places in America, such as Santa Barbara, in
Mhm.
California. I spent a couple of years out there. I love it. It's amazing. It's beautiful, great people. But um, outside of that place, like I grew up in Arizona, Scottsdale specifically, and I also lived in Fountain Hills for a bit. Just like when I actually spent some time the other night, kind of reflecting on my life and thinking about like, okay, imagine I was in Arizona again, and I just remembered that feeling of just like dread and just really depression of just like looking around you and being like, this is just depressing. It's just a bunch of desert. It's a bunch of people that just are in that routine, especially in like Scottsdale, if you've ever been there, which is like basically Beverly Hills of
Yeah.
California, where people driving around fancy cars. Yeah, I love like cool cars and big houses and all these things, but like that's not what I'm craving and seeking after. It's just like I'm craving after adventure and cool people and deep conversation and also acquiring new knowledge and learning, getting new wisdom from people that are knowledgeable in different areas. But I think authenticity on top of that is so important, and it's hard to find like truly authentic people in a lot of these big cities, especially LA, where I lived for a handful of
Yeah.
years.
Is
And
the worst.
yeah, yeah, and it's like I got to experience these things to now look back and go like, wow, I got to experience that, and I remember what that's like, and yeah, like I can't imagine myself ever going back to the States other than having some business opportunity to then leave immediately after, or for when I have my partner, when I go and show her, where I grew up, where I lived, and go
Mhm.
on a little trip around the States because she's always wanted to see that. But outside of that, like we're so happy in this incredible environment, whether it's Thailand, Bali, or Cambodia, or I'm trying to think of other places. I've been to Colombia. That place is really cool. And it's like other different cultures where, like, first off, the world's so big, and I really want to explore the world. Malia and I had done visa run from Thailand to Cambodia. Just what was planning on being like a week like stay and then like we're out. But we ended like we're tired of just bouncing around from all these different places, and then we, got a hotel and stayed there for a bit, and then I was just kind of in that town for a little bit. It's called Siem Reap. That's the specific town that
Mhm.
I live in right now, and we were just cruising around. There's these ancient temples. It's actually where the Tomb Raider movie by with Angelina Jolie was filmed, and it's just fucking so cool. Different world, because a lot of people are like I didn't know what Cambodia was. Like I've heard that word, that country, but I knew nothing about it
Mhm.
until I was like, all right, yeah, let's do a visa run real quick and check it out. And anyway, I saw how I was like, wow, this particular town of Siem Reap, I started looking at some properties because I was also at the place where I was like, okay, I really want to have like my own headquarters. Like I want to have my own bitchin' property that I can install, pull up bars and do these, fun, workouts with guys, and also just have a place I could film some content and just like have my own little home, like get away from the world. And I have this beautiful property. It's like honestly my perfect home ever. I wish I could like put it inside of like a pokeball and like throw it wherever I find like a place that's a little bit more ideal. Because Cambodia just definitely doesn't have a lot of things that I kind of want for my life long term. But it's been an amazing time so far, and being able to, um, yeah, just like kind of be that big fish in this small pond. Like everyone always talks about, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. 100%. But eventually, it's kind of nice to get back to that feeling of what's it like going back into a kind of like a normal society. And by normal, I mean your typical backpacker. They're not the guy that's trying to become multimillionaire and live in the penthouse of the hotel. A lot of them are living that hostel life. So when all of a sudden I'm out here bumping shoulders with like on the street or going out to eat, and then you see a bunch of people that actually do live in this town that are doing a whole different lifestyle, and then I'm like the only entrepreneur here. I was like, fuck, this is actually kind of cool. So I built a little community with talking about business, and there's a lot of guys that either train at or own this MMA gym, and so I just
Mhm.
built some really good friendships out here, and it's been amazing to like finally slow down instead of running around trying to explore this new city and cram as much stuff into it as possible. Because after a year and a half of that, I'm sure you can relate or I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, but you get to a place where you're like, fuck, I'm actually drained and I don't want to live out of, I did not want to live out of a suitcase anymore. I was tired of that. And so, yeah, it's been so great having that, shift in lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah, I totally feel that, man. I've lived in places. I was working all over California and just places where you didn't always find authenticity, realness, rawness, and that's something that I feel I've gained from traveling the world is just getting to meet real local people that even when I'm in places such as Mexico, where there's
Mm,
plenty of gringo land that you could go live in, I try to live amongst the locals. Even where I'm at
yeah,
now here in Guatemala. Although it's more of a upscale area just for safety purposes, because there's some areas that are a little rougher here.
yeah,
I'm mostly amongst locals. Like I'm the only white dude walking around, and it's really nice because I feel that I ingrain in the culture. I get to focus on eating at local restaurants, supporting local people, and you just get that realness of life. And that's where I really resonate with what you shared is that I want to gain a perspective on life that I never had and see how that changes me, see how that makes me a better person and see where I can help in areas that maybe I didn't recognize in the first place because of my upbringing. And so
yeah.
traveling has been super crucial. And I love meeting others who have traveled because you there's just a different perspective on life and on the world that it's not
Mhm.
about, oh, yes, we want to be secure financially and we want to be able to take care of ourselves and our family and provide. But at the end of the day, I really vibe with the fact that you also just want to have experiences, live an adventurous life, and love the people that you love hard and just be who you truly are and not worry about becoming because that's kind of where I'm at. And I am curious because you got this relationship with Leah and clearly you did a lot of the work to get to that place where you could receive her. I'm sure maybe if
Mhm.
she met you in a previous lifetime that maybe you weren't ready to receive a woman like her.
Yeah, we
And
talk about that a lot. Yeah,
yeah,
and if she says that with her end too, which I'm sure in many ways, yeah, that could be true. But I also feel like we both, yeah, did that work to meet each other at this place in our life where we actually were finally like both individually like, oh, you know what? I actually don't need anyone. Like, if I find someone amazing, cool, and I'm actually having that standard for I'm only gonna like really entertain someone that's really my person. And I finally got to a place where I was like dating around, and actually in Bali, I was going on a lot of dates. Like it was just I would either go up to people, not necessarily sleep with them, but just like go on dates. And then if I was like, all right, doesn't this person doesn't seem like she has the traits of being like my queen, all right, I'm just cool. And maybe it was just literally a conversation we had over some food at a restaurant, or maybe we went on a little adventure, but I finally got to this place where I was literally like, yo, I'm not even going to entertain giving my energy to anything that's not going to grow. And I think that's one thing I'm sure you've experienced this too when you're traveling is like, you're like, wow, there's all these other people that are also traveling. So they're in this kind of different headspace. And I
yeah,
mean, my dating experiences in the States, like, not that I could never get a date, but I could never really find a date that, or like, find like my person. And so then you kind of settle of, okay, well, you go on a date and you realize, oh, this isn't really my person, but maybe you're like, okay, well, I'm craving some intimacy. And that's what I think a lot of guys crave. And I think one like cheat code I've learned from life of traveling is date a woman who's not from your country because anything you talk about with your backstory is going to be like so intriguing to them.
mhm,
Leah's life of everything she grew up with and didn't have in South Africa. I'm like, wow, that's so fascinating. And then everything I talk about, she's like, are you kidding me? You have this, you don't have giant walls with barbed wire covering every single house. I'm like, no, like if you had that you're probably in a shitty neighborhood or like sketchy part of town,
yeah,
in like Arizona. But compared to her, it's like no, like if you don't have a wall that's 10 feet high with barbed wire and all this stuff, like you're in danger and you could get robbed. So like different worlds. So us naturally,
mhm,
we have intriguing conversations just about our life. And I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? What do you think
Yeah.
regarding that
I mean,
topic?
you say this as I'm dating a Guatemalan girl here in Guatemala, and she comes from very humble beginnings.
Yeah.
Even right now, where she lives, just yesterday, we were spending the weekend celebrating Mother's Day with her mom and her family, and um, all this past weekend, their entire community is not receiving water right now. They're not
Mm.
getting water to their home, so there was a huge lineup in the street of all the families lining up to get water from this like water spigot at the end of the road. And they're not complaining. Her whole family, yeah, it sucks, but they're not complaining and crying and miserable that they can't take a shower or whatnot, or they have to reserve their water. I got to feel the abundance that they have without the abundance of what I think abundance is, and that's the financial
Mm.
aspects. Because I grew
Yeah.
up with a very scarce family. Everything was about money, but I get to see them who don't have a lot of money, but really have this massive family. They're happy. They got kids everywhere. There's dogs everywhere. There's cats everywhere. They go to church. There's a community, and that has been so needed for me
Yeah.
because it's something I never had. I had a small family that was very disconnected, truthfully. And so that's been very healing for me to see that perspective on life. And I'm really feeding into that and really going with it and seeing what God, what the universe has for me and is trying to teach me through these lessons. So I totally get you there. And uh, I see on social media, there's the whole passport bro movement, and I don't consider myself one. Have you heard of that term?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I see it often now where there will be single women mostly, maybe some single guys too, who criticize these passport bros per se, and saying the same thing. It's always they're going to these poorer countries to take advantage of desperate women. And first of all, I just find that extremely discriminatory and just demeaning to the people of those countries because she's not desperate. She might not have a lot of money, but I promise you, she's not desperate. And
Mhm.
there's so much we can gain from meeting people and just mixing cultures. And we're just in this culture of outrage in America that it's so nice and refreshing to get away from and just be in a
Yeah.
culture where, you know what, it's okay to be a man, it's okay to be masculine, and it's okay for a woman who wants to be in a more feminine role, who wants to be a little more submissive, who wants to have their man take care of the provisions and providing, and she maybe stay at home, or maybe she has interest in finding new work. It's like it's so nice and refreshing to be out of that mindset. And so I am curious. I know you've talked about this in some of your content, and that's maybe a bit of the type of relationship that you have with Leah. Um, could you share a bit more intimately about what you found that works in your relationship and what you feel more men need in regards to relationships?
For sure. Well, I'll say that there are still women out there that want to cook and clean and be that feminine, like housekeeper role. That doesn't mean that they don't want help. And I think a lot of guys think that for a woman to stand in that place, or maybe even the woman that hear that and go, "Oh, I can't believe what are we?" And they think it's talking about some era way back when in
Yeah.
reality like that is kind of a more feminine role, and the masculine role is being a protector provider. So like with my relationship with Leah, I pay the rent, I pay the bills, and I buy most of the food, and but she still has her card and she'll go buy some things, or sometimes she'll take me out and I'm like, sweet, that's awesome. I love when she takes me out for dinner. But we do have that dynamic where yeah, she like cooks me meals every single day. And if I see the dishes, after she cooks, I try to go and help and clean them, and do where I feel like I can support her, but also let her like do what she loves doing. She loves gardening. We have a massive backyard, so she goes and plants new plants, and sometimes I'll come and hang out with her and go plant some things with her. And whether that specific role or activity is masculine and feminine, we both understand what kind of category things go into, but we both love stepping into each other's role to help support one another. And I think that's something that is very important for a relationship. Is it's not like, okay, a woman should never take out her wallet. And I get it. Everyone can have their own, thoughts. I mean, you see the chaos in the dating landscape, and even it's like, yeah, social media with, men being fed up with the feminist and, kind of boss babe era.
Mhm.
And you have women that are like saying, ladies, don't do any of the like wife activities until he puts a ring on it or things like that. And I'm just glad I'm not in that place anymore of like looking for a partner that, or even like having to look for what I actually want, because I've gotten to experience a handful of different dynamics in relationships from my experiences in life so far. And I've, learned lessons from all of them, and to finally, figure out what I truly do kind of demand for my life. And by demand, I really just mean like my standards of, hey, this is what I'm looking for. If you don't meet them, no worries. I'm not going to force you into that, but that's what I want. I want my partner to want to do these things. And my partner, does those things, and I do the things that she wants for her life. And she's talked about how the guys she's had two boyfriends in her life, one for 6 years and one for 1 year. Yeah, she's 25, and she's talked about how like she's never had a man in her life that has done those things. Now she also has had a lot of men to kind of base that off of, but it's also nice that I'm kind of able to be like, okay, cool, she experienced her previous boyfriends that were, I'm sure, great people, and had awesome things going for themselves that made them who they were. But I know that I'm kind of this like figure that's coming to her life and being like, hey, come ride shotgun in my life, and let's go do something fun. And I think that's a very important dynamic, especially for a guy like you and I, where we're entrepreneurial, we're focused on like building our life, but we also, like to, I mean, for me, like I like being, I never wear like shoes anymore unless I really have to, or if I'm doing like squats or something. Like I'm typically, yeah, like you said at the beginning of this podcast,
Yeah.
shirtless, with my shorts on, and that's the life that I live. She
Mhm.
is usually in her workout clothes, like a little sports bra and her shorts, and we just live our life barefoot, and like being very physically active,
Mhm.
and our dynamic just works together.
It's
I could
beautiful.
never be with a woman that is like super into high luxury and shopping, or needs to be in a Benz and all these things. Now I still have the goals of, I want a matte black Rolls Royce just for fuck it, that looks sick and that would be awesome. But like I don't need that life. And for
Mhm.
two people that don't need that life and that love the adventure, nature, travel lifestyle, like it's easier for them to mesh than I think the other world.
Yeah, yeah, I feel that, man. You made me laugh because talking about not wearing shoes all the time, and I'm very much the biohacker and just living a healthy lifestyle. But ever since I've been nomadic, when I went to Costa Rica, I stopped wearing underwear, and I haven't worn
Same,
underwear.
actually. Most of the time, yeah.
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 Yeah. The only time I wore it was I wore it. It's funny. I was gone for maybe 6 months. And then I was flying to Mongolia and I was like, oh, it might be cold there. I don't know. Or it might be cold on the plane. And I had put underwear on and I was sitting on the flight, like fidgeting, moving my junk around. And I was like, what? Why am I so uncomfortable? And I didn't realize till I landed that I was like, oh my God, I haven't worn, I literally didn't recognize it. I hadn't worn underwear in like 6 months. And it was after
Wow.
that, I was like, no more. But there's a testament to the fact that I've been in mostly tropical cultures
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
climates. But I love that, man, because it's just there's a lot of men and there's a lot of pressure nowadays to be a certain way. Economically, there's a lot of pressure, especially in the States and in other
Mhm.
countries. And there's a lot of feeding of lies, feeding of things that aren't healthy for us, feeding into culture that is just leading to outrage. And I think this is just refreshing for men to hear, to know, hey, like, you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to fall into any of these arguments, any of these conversations, politics. If you want to just go out and just be leading this natural, healthy lifestyle where there's realness and authenticity, it is out there. you just got to get out of wherever you're in and realize
Mm,
that there's a whole other world out there. And, with that, I think a big part of what you've done is you've raged on for yourself, is you've found what you needed to feel whole, not only with a relationship, but first within yourself to see what do I need to feel better about myself. And now you've found this relationship and you've been building this business. And so this whole podcast is about raging on and what you rage for. What is the person, the thing, the belief. And so I'm curious, at this time in your life, what do you feel it is that you rage on for? And just as a little background, rage, I believe, is the deepest form of love. Is that when someone's in danger, we don't step in front out of fear. We step in front out of love for that person, for innocence, for femininity, for your partner, to say, I'm not scared. I'm stepping in front out of my deepest love. So at this moment in your life, what do you feel it is that you rage for?
the word that comes to mind first is exploration. I love exploring things and having my mind be open to, yeah, new things you know, that have not yet been exposed to. And when it comes to, say, for example, the temples here in Cambodia, where I'm like, wow, these are like castles, but of course, temples and castles are different. But I feel like these big ass fortresses, and it's really crazy. You should look up like Siem Reap temples. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. So I think, yeah, it's like being in this place where I want to explore and to see everything and be exposed to everything. Leah and I plan to really explore a ton of Europe next year. That's like what
Yeah.
2025 is dedicated to.
I was gonna say I am
And
surprised with your brand. You haven't been to like Scotland or
it's
just
on the
some.
list for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've just been in this like I want to fucking do that laptop lifestyle in these places, but on tropical lifestyle, not wearing a shirt. Like I'm in a kind of Tarzan phase right now. And but I will be doing that because I am kind of craving some colder weather. So I would also
Mhm.
love to like have a bit of a winter someplace. I mean, I don't plan on being in the States again for a long time unless I really need to. And so yeah, so that's definitely yeah, the place will be. But yeah, I'd say what do I rage on for? It's really exploration and diving deep into new cultures. I loved when I saw the floating villages that are out here where I live, where there's people that literally have like houses that are on these, pillars, basically, sticks, and then it's like a big house. And like, they go to the bathroom, like I don't know how they fully do it, but like it's basically like you have to go on a boat to get to these houses. And they're just like basically imagine an outdoor shed that you build with some wood. Well, that's what
Mhm.
these people live in. They sleep on the ground. Like total different world. And it was so amazing seeing that because again, it shifts your perspective. I lived in a world where people have nicer cars than me, and I was like, I feel insignificant because this. Now, like, I could be in that world and I don't give a shit. Like, I'm like, none of this fucking matters, and
Mhm.
and and I feel so detached from all the shit that used to consume me when I was younger because again, that's what I was exposed to. I was exposed to, oh, you're successful if you graduate from this college and you make this much money, and if you look this way, and I'd always known inside me, like, I don't really want to fit in that box, but I hadn't been exposed to what's possible throughout my life, whether it was living in Hollywood, whether it was finally doing psychedelics for the first time. I've done only twice. So I have more to like experiment with. But like, again, like, I want to experiment with everything. I want to get exposed to all these things so I can speak, and share my life experiences, but also have lessons that are tied to actual events from my life. And I think that's something that everyone should strive to do. And for me, I've just kind of gotten over like that fear of what if something goes wrong? Like, what if I get kidnapped? What if I do this? Like, whatever, as long as I live, I'll have a fucking story. I hope I keep all my fingers and I hope that I have my eyesight and,
Mhm.
nothing like really fucked up happens to me. But I welcome whatever life has in store for me because I know that I'll have a great story to tell on the upcoming podcast.
Yeah. I love that, man.
Yeah.
I always used to say I want to have a book that people want to pick up off the shelf. I don't want
Hmm.
people to go to the library and walk past it because it looks boring. And
Yeah.
and part of that manifesting or wanting is recognizing that, well, if you want a book like that, you're going to go through some shit ass times, because no one
Hmm.
reads a book where everything's great. And so in the moments where I am in my darkness and am in my pain, which has been many times, I've had to sit with that and go, you asked for this.
Yeah.
You asked for this, man. So suck it up and go through it, move through it. That's the only way. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that, man. I see a lot of resonance in our lifestyles. And I think that this should be, in my opinion, something to be celebrated, and for more men and women to look at and say, I can do this because, and I'm sure you could speak on this, but traveling doesn't cost that much. It really doesn't. If you are okay with living in hostels or talking to locals or sleeping on couches, you don't have to have a ton of money to be able to go do it, to be able to go to Mexico for a
Hmm.
month. You could stay there for $1,000. That's very
Yeah.
doable,
The
so
flight is typically the most expensive thing if you're going to fly across the country. I remember when I was in the Philippines, I flew back because I have a marketing company. And so I flew back to the States to work with this law firm. And obviously to fly back there, like, had to have been
yeah,
worth it. But then I was like, cool, all right, now I'm ready to fly back to, that part of the world. And what the fuck again, like my brain is like loses train of thought. Oh yeah, it's like the flights are expensive,
yeah,
there's like 2 grand just flying back and forth. But in terms of your life, if you want to, you can pull off living off $1,000. It
mhm,
probably is going to be uncomfortable. I'd say 2,000 in like those certain countries, like say, Colombia.
yeah,
I don't know about Guatemala, but I'm sure like, there's so many places like, Philippines, even like, yeah, Bali and Thailand. You can live a good life if you're on 2 grand a month. And of course, the more that you have, the more flexible you are, and I think it opens the opportunity for you to start doing more fun things. Like if you're living off a small budget, okay, cool, I can at least eat some rice at or at least like get nice cheap meal at these little shacks on the side of the road, and then live in a hostel. Like yeah, you'll get by, and that's a good ass fun life. But
mhm,
eventually, you might go, okay, I'm tired of these drunk people coming in and being loud. Like I want my own place. And then you might get to a place where you're like, I want to actually have a nice view up high. And then, you kind of up your standards. Well, that's why it's great. It's like, okay, cool. Well, go, knock out your shit with the business, go
yeah,
figure out what you got to do. Go get a couple of clients every month. So that way you're in a more comfortable position. But yeah, it's funny because like, the money I was spending in like, Hollywood or, just like daily life. I even moved to Colorado when, again, we're in 24 now, so I think it was 22. I moved out to Colorado for about a year because I was tired of the states. Finally had the Vice documentary filmed. I was like mentally okay, cool, check. I want to go and just live a normal ass life for a bit,
mhm,
and it was great, but also still like Colorado is expensive and in regards to like the life I've been living out here. Like once I now have seen like what your money can do for you, like
yeah,
fuck, like totally different. On average, you could spend $100 on a date night in the States compared
yeah,
to out here. I could spend like $25 and we had a good ass fucking night. So
yeah,
just imagine that your dollar goes way further. And for some people, yeah, it's really only the people that haven't experienced it that I think would have like a negative opinion on that. Or even like say some people say some people that have a problem with say for example the passport bros or even like that lifestyle. It's
mhm,
like okay, what's your problem with it? Is it you're tired of men? And again, it's just I guess me kind of assuming, but like whenever I see stuff on Facebook or whatever of like maybe a woman complaining about that, or even a man saying like real men don't go and look for the easy way out. It's like okay, well if you want to continue in that hustle culture, go ahead. I'm not
yeah,
saying anything wrong with that. I'll share what I think is right for me and what I do kind of think is smart. And what I do think is smart is go figure out an income stream that's virtual using the US dollar, but spend that shit elsewhere. You'll be
mhm,
happier, you'll have a more adventurous life. I'm sure there's some people that want to live that kind of mundane rat race lifestyle, but I also think they've been programmed to think that's what life is. Like
yeah,
anyone that gets exposed to the lifestyle of, hey, let's go, canyoneering tomorrow, and you're with a group of people, and you're like, fuck, and then you live that life. You're like, wow, this is so great. I'm never gonna go back.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is just a mindset shift and recognizing it is possible. It's just a matter of what are you willing to sacrifice? Because even this lifestyle, there's sacrifice. You're not close to family all the time, and you don't always get the same. I can't Amazon Prime things to my apartment here in Guatemala. It's
Mm.
not always the same, but there's pros and cons, right? And it's refreshing, and I think a lot of men need to hear this because there is that opportunity. And if you're not happy in a place like the States or the UK or wherever you're listening from, that there is another way. There's different ways, and to stop listening to what other people want for you and just to do what is in alignment with what you feel is right for your life and go live it because we're all going to die. So, with that, man, I like to finish up with some rapid fire questions and then my final question for you. Uh, what's one non-negotiable activity you do daily to keep you at your best?
Workout.
Beautiful. This is my personal favorite. What food is your guilty pleasure?
Mango ice cream. And by ice cream, I mean my girlfriend blends up mangoes because we have like 5 mango trees in our backyard. She'll
Yeah.
pick them, peel them, blend them up, and then she'll bring me a smoothie every single day. So I guess like mango smoothie is really it. I said mango ice cream because a couple minutes before this podcast, she grabbed some of the mango smoothie that she had, put in the freezer, but wasn't yet fully frozen. And we just
Yeah.
had a couple spoonfuls, and it's literally like ice cream, but it's just mango.
Yeah.
And so it's healthy and delicious.
That's like that Dole, I think it's Dole Whip. I think I see all the time. But yeah, mango is the shit. I love it.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's amazing.
Especially because we don't get it in the States or a good
Yeah.
mango. What brings you the most joy in life right now?
Mm, I'd say creating curriculum, or like seeing curriculum be brought to life. I don't think you've seen it. Yeah, I'll have to send you my school link because I have basically the whole
Mhm.
structure for my business right now is, of the gamified system of self-improvement. And I have guys come and join my free school community, and then I have the paid ones inside there for like, Zoom calls and all that stuff. But I have this like incredible 7-day quest that I have guys go and experience that. I have dudes that are 14 years old going through it. I'm not marketing to that demographic. Just somehow get a lot of these guys from like, social media and YouTube. But then I have guys that are in like, their 40s going through it. And I'm so proud of what I've created and being able to see guys like go through that stuff after, that time period I mentioned where I was working on curriculum and getting inspired by like, what makes people want to play a video game. And I thought about, okay, well, maybe if I start having like my videos, instead of like a boring Loom video of me going through a document, why don't I have like fucking After Effects animations that are like, the, metallic silver text, and then me climbing these temples and like guys sparring, but instead of just sparring in the daytime, have like a dark out at night with these cool red lights in the background, like just literally making like movies. Even what I try to do with this studio setup, and looks way cooler when I have my actual camera. I don't know how it looks on here, but like just thinking, okay, I want this red light and a blue light. Just add some kind of look. That when I get to see guys go through the experience that I spent so much time creating and perfecting, that brings me the most joy.
Love that, man. Love it. Um, what is one thing very few people know about you that you wish more knew?
I told my girlfriend this the other night, and I realized like I've never told someone this. When I was 13, I shit my pants while I was going down this mountain while I was skiing, and I remember it was the most uncomfortable feeling because I was with this guy Cody that was cool as hell. He skateboarded, snowboarded, and I told you how like as a freshman in high school, I was like very much in my shell. So whatever age it was, maybe I was like 10, 11, 12. But I remember going down this Black Diamond actually, because I was hitting those at a young age. And I was
Yeah.
on my skis and I start shitting my pants. And at this age, I don't have the confidence to be like, oh, well, I shit my pants. That's embarrassing, but whatever. I'll never see these people again. I like was so embarrassed. And I remember how traumatizing that was at that time period. And I realized I never told anyone, not that I really think about it at this age, but like I was like, oh shit, the reason I never told anyone was because I was so embarrassed about it. Well, now, this could get 2 views or it could get 2 million. if it gets 2 million, 2 million people are gonna know I shit my pants. Cool. Doesn't matter. Whatever shit you go through, like it's just a fucking moment, you know? Get over it.
Literally. Oh God,
Yeah.
that gave me a good laugh, man. It brings me back to just a couple months ago during my ayahuasca ceremony where I was the one out of 16 people basically shitting my brains out the whole time. It was all over the floor. And
Oh my
so
God.
I think we all have our moments, whether we were a kid or whether we were a
Or an
fully
adult.
formed adult.
Yeah. Shit. Well,
Amazing.
after this podcast, you'll have to share that with me sometime.
Yeah.
I want to hear that.
Yeah, man. With that, my final question is a little more serious, but if at this moment I hit a button and your microphone would speak to the entire world and everyone could understand you, everyone understood English for this moment, what message would you share with every human being at this current moment in society in 2024 that you believe everyone needs to hear?
Wow. Well, at first, I would hope I'd have a little bit of a heads up so I can brainstorm what that statement would be instead of it like, all right, you're live, go, spit something quick. Because I can do that. But I think for me to really, yeah, share like what I think would be impactful and like the best would be, mm,
I
I'd
like
say,
in
I
the
mean, I
moment,
heard
man.
this.
I like
Yeah,
in the moment, whatever just comes alive for you.
yeah, the work instills the worth, right? You want to be worth more, whether like no matter whatever that means to you. Like that phrase, and that can mean so many different things to other people, and they can dissect it. But I think that phrase is what I would tell people is like the work instills the worth.
Beautiful, man. I love it. Your microphone
Yeah.
is off. Uh, Brother, it's been a pleasure to have you on and to chat with you and get to know more about your life and what's brought you to where you're at now, being an inspiration for other men and leading other men, as well as leading a new partner who's provided you a really great life and adventuring in this world. It's an inspiration to a lot of men out there who are living lives that aren't fulfilling for them right now and could listen and benefit from individuals like yourself who are going their own way, going their own path, and creating their own lifestyle. So I love it. It really resonates with me. What's next for you? What are you doing now? What do you want people to know about you, and where could they find you if they want to connect, learn, and maybe even join your programs?
Yeah, follow my Instagram and just watch my daily stories. I don't post a whole lot on my feed, but I, keep my life updated and share things periodically. But I post my stories, try to do almost every day, just to yeah, just kind of document the things I'm up to, but also like share some value. I try to like, share my personality, showcase behind the scenes of like, yo, this is what I do. My girlfriend and I, she makes some smoothies every day. We go and slackline, we work out, and like we have this very chill life, and I love that. But I'm also very excited for doing more retreats and these experiences. I've finally really dialed in like some awesome things that I provide my guys that pay me or the free stuff that I very much pride myself on with going, hey, when people go and dive into Gravel Castle, whether they ever pay us $1, they're going to get some really cool experiences if they actually like go through the stuff and
Mhm.
do it. But it's not like, hey, here's a bunch of worksheets, good luck, take off. It's like, no, like here's actual experiences and like an actual, virtual, yeah, experience that they can dive into. So I'd say, yeah, go to gravelthecastle.com and I have a whole funnel that'll give you some really cool things. You'll be part of the community and get a taste of what my brain comes up with.
Awesome, man. Everyone go check out Ken if you're interested in his work. Really enjoy and love what you're doing, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Everyone, it's been a pleasure, man. Ken, you can go take your shirt off now. The podcast is over. All
Amazing.
right. It's been a pleasure, man.